How to communicate effectively. We have gone through 6 parts of talking about fixing the right intention, tailoring the message that you want to deliver, which you have to communicate to the right audience, picking the right medium, developing the right messaging structure, working on the core message, the packaging of the message. Now we're talking about the most important element of all. Obviously, each element of the process of effective communication is important. But I think, in my personal opinion, you can make up for lacks, minor lacks, not major ones, in all of the points above, in all the paths that we've discovered, throughout the series. If you are great when it comes to the delivery of your message, according to me, how I classify it, effective delivery consists of confidence, continuity, and keeping the process intuitive, perceptive, and engaging. Now, what do I mean about that? Look, when you are a writer who's writing a book, a presenter who's presenting a program, or a public speaker, or a coach, or even, giving a presentation in your office to the board, let's say, or to your staff members, one thing that you need to realize is that if you do not exude confidence, you may know your subject matter very well, but that will not necessarily make you a great, what do you say, communicator, a great professor, a great teacher. Why? Because confidence is the most important element when you want to build a connection with your audience. This is as much in terms of written communication as it is in terms of verbal communication. You can pick out how much confidence a writer has in what they're creating with respect to the time that they spend on developing the plot, sticking to how what they're describing will be expressed the best. Are they rushing through the material? Are they rushing through the story? Are they rushing, diving straight into the content, into the meat of the matter, before they have taken the time to actually get themselves set? You notice these things. If you're in the audience, you notice these things. If you're reading a book, you notice that. An article, you notice that. You pick up on these non-verbal cues in the person who is communicating, even if you're only reading what they have mentioned over there. You cannot really pick up the non-verbal cues, but you can read between the lines to make an assessment of how confident the author is with respect to what he or she is expressing. Okay? So confidence, when you are speaking, when you are writing, when you are expressing yourself, imagine yourself, and this is the easiest technique that I can share. Imagine yourself as the highest version of who you are and channel that energy. It doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter who you're talking to. Imagine yourself at the highest possible expression of who you are, what you want to do, where this communication is taking you. If you are delivering a piece of news that you think, as an anchor, as a presenter, actually has the capability of making you famous overnight, that is the zone from which you need to channel that communication. If you're writing something that you think has the ability to be path-breaking in terms of literature, in terms of what do you say, it could be a report. If it has the ability to bring about a paradigm shift in your field or with respect to the knowledge of your field, channel that energy, tap into it. Okay, this is why quite often great communicators are not necessarily people who may be the most intelligent, the most intellectual, but they can be great, actors. They can be great performers. Because building this connection with what you have in thought, even though it does not exist in front of you, it's quite a skill. Why do you think acting is so difficult? Why do you think actors are paid so much? Because an actor can act that he's actually mounting a dragon and flying away when he has nothing but green screens behind him, and he's sitting on a wooden sort of, mechanism that they've created to mimic a dragon. The second thing, guys, is continuity. What is continuity? Continuity effectively means that when you are communicating, when you are seeking to communicate from a flow state of connecting with your higher self. Now, this is the seventh step. Please note, after you've done all the technical things that you need to do. You've taken the time to, go through all the steps that we've talked about before, right? But when you are in this state where you are communicating with confidence, you will falter in some way. You will go off track somewhere. There will be some kind of a interruption. A good communicator, effective communicator, maintains the continuity of that communication irrespective of whatever happens in the background. Why is that so important? That is important because when you are communicating and there are people who are paying attention to what you're saying, reading what you're saying, or just listening to you or watching you, you do have their attention. Even if, let's say, 10 to 20% of the people, you do have their attention. When you express a desire to stick to the process that you are in, stick to the process of communication, when you express your commitment to the same, you maintain that connection with the people who are in that moment connected with you. This does have an effect on the people around them who may not be as cognizant to what you're saying, figuratively speaking, but they will get interested seeing the great connection that you have going with a section of the audience or a percentage of the audience, no matter what is happening in the back. Whether or not, let's say, you fumbled a word. I quite often see people, they fumble words when they're talking about something very important and they break the flow by addressing that fumble. Why are you so insecure? Nobody's going to judge you just because you fumble one word. Obviously, I mean, if people are watching you, they can understand, okay, this person probably talks a lot. Or let's say, if you're writing, there could be a minor typo, there could be a minor grammatical error. If you keep building on top of it, however, correcting it and moving on, that's the mark of a great communicator. By doing that, you also feel human, you also feel original, you also feel natural to the audience, to the readers, to whoever's connected with you in that moment, who is listening to you, who has given you all of their attention. Okay, this is something very important to keep in mind. Now, the next 3 points are more about addressing the nature of delivery. It should be intuitive, it should be perceptive, and it should be engaging. What do I mean by effective communication? The delivery of effective communication being intuitive. Guys, when you are talking, when you are writing, when you are expressing anything in any level of detail, no matter what your intention, be it to educate or share knowledge or inform, or to just express yourself or entertain, you have to understand that there are things that people have become used to. If there is a book that you've written and there's a word that is connected to a terminology which is not commonly used, it is an intuitive expectation that with an asterisk you have detailed that somewhere at the back in the glossary or in the footnotes. There is an intuitive expectation that when you are talking about facts and figures, there is going to be a table along with it. You're not going to detail them in an Excel format and get your audience to see and understand. There is an intuitive understanding that as a reporter, as a YouTuber, as a communicator on a video platform, if you're describing an event that was completely heinous, or let's say, or that was noteworthy in any way that you're covering, you will include some pictures. You will include maybe a video snapshot, okay, few seconds. or a muted aspect on the side where people are actually able to see what you're talking about. These are some intuitive aspects of communication which build upon people's habits of what they expect out of an effective communication, be it in a group, be it individually as an artist, as a creator, as a speaker, right? When you're just going online and expressing yourself in a podcast and you don't really know who's watching or who's not, but this is something which is expected of you, and so it helps to stay on top of what intuitive refers to with respect to your particular medium. For example, YouTube has an option here where you can have information cards along with videos. Now, if you were saying something that your audience doesn't naturally know, intuitively they are going to expect that it is there somewhere. Intuitively, it is there somewhere in the what do you say the cards, right? The information cards. Intuitively, it is expected that when you have a long video that details out methods or steps, there will be timestamps. So this intuitive aspect of effective communicative delivery is very important that you should not ignore. This ensures that that connection remains tight, that even if somebody has tuned into your communication randomly, they are able to make sense of what you are saying, what you're talking about, and they get interested enough, probably invested enough, to go back and resume from the beginning whatever it is that brought everybody else to that point. You, as the writer, as the speaker, as the podcaster, as the what do you say, commentator, whatever you are expressing, that is something that should be perceptive of how people are responding to what you say. Do they seem confused? You cannot just go and do your own thing, write anything that you want or say anything that you want and expect it to be understood and related to and, what you say, followed and celebrated by the world. No. Even people who have written very difficult novels, even people who have written very difficult pieces, difficult poems, have built it up to that point. There is some sort of continuity, there's some sort of timing there. You, as a communicator, are an individual who is also, no matter from which perspective you are communicating, what's your intention, you are also an entertainer. That is why Google, one of the most successful companies of our times, have mastered their advertising strategy. Even their ads have important guidelines that you need to keep in mind when you're designing them. Just because you're paying Google money doesn't mean that you're going to create any ad. Clicking an ad should also be a great experience from the perspective of the user. They take that into account. Okay, so the level of interest, the level of energy, the level of engagement, the level of connect that you see or do not see in your audience, or that you can sense as part of your writing, is something that you have to take into account. It is important for you as a writer to also think like a reader. Step away or take help if you need on truly analyzing what is the level of retention with respect to what's being written, what's being expressed. Obviously, it depends. As a writer, you can begin by writing, let's say, novellas, but let's say 20 years later, you've built a sizable audience. You can afford to write vague masterpieces. Stories that are debated upon by a lot of people, but that are read nevertheless, because people by that time, they are tuned into you. They completely aligned with your energy, with your style, with you as a communicator. Even then, effective communicative techniques guarantee the best responses. If what you're saying is complicated, at least to the audience that you're communicating to, then not a lot of it is going to be retained. And last but not the least part of the process is that effective communicative delivery is engaging. As long as it is a one-way process to say whatever you're saying and how you're saying it, it's not really going to make that much of a difference. it's not really going to be as exciting. People are not really going to follow you as much. If you truly want your audience to have that aha moment, now what you require is to deliver at least a sense of co-creation with whatever you're building, whatever you're creating. Engaging your audience is about keeping their attention trapped, glued to whatever it is that is being said, that is being communicated. Use media as much as possible. Use subplots as much as possible. Create suspense. Use communicative tools. Build a sort of rhythm with respect to what you have to include a few lines of poetry into a speech. Include a joke. Obviously, you have to tailor that joke, and you have to, tailor the co-curricular elements in the primary communication on the basis of your audience. You have to keep that in mind. Okay? But there needs to be some aspect of surprise, some aspect of anticipation, some aspect of emotional highs and lows. If you truly want the message that is being communicated to be remembered, to be absorbed, to be repeated, in fact, even, that's the best. Word of mouth. Even if, let's say, I mean, you can apply this even in terms of giving a presentation to the board. If the board can talk about your presentation amongst themselves after the presentation is over, man, you've probably impressed them, or you've truly pissed them off. But the point is that if that is the impact that your communication is generating, you can bet that this communication has been effective. Now, if you've done the work in understanding your audience, in building the core structure, in picking the right medium, then engaging your audience is really not that difficult. It's just you being your authentic self, trying to communicate with individuals that you know get you. That's the most important.